The Mandalorian series on Disney Plus has brought about some changes to Star Wars lore, especially where Tatooine is concerned. Let's take a look at how the hit series has changed the way we view the Tusken Raiders, or Sand People for those of us in the older crowd, today on Star Wars Fanatic. While you're here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can do it either by clicking my icon in the video or the red subscribe button just below it. Go ahead and give a thumbs up to support what I do here. Give a thumbs down if you disagree, but please tell me why, so I can better service my viewers. Share the video, and let's see if we can get this one up to 1,000 views. Okay, so let's jump in. In A New Hope, we see Luke and C-3PO get absolutely pummeled by the Sand People. Luke was even a bit skeptical of confronting them and kept his distance. After all, his grandmother was killed by them, and they took pop shots at his father's pod racer during the Boonta Eve Classic race. For all intents and purposes, the Tusken Raiders were savages throughout the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. So what changed that, and how do we feel about it? Okay, if you read the Aftermath trilogy, you will see that Cobb Vanth calmed the Sand People and began to have decent relations with them. However, in the Mandalorian series, we see Cobb Vanth has a distaste for them. Is this an inconsistency between the novels and the series? Not necessarily. In Season 1, we see Din Djarin have negotiations with the Tusken Raiders for passage through their lands. This is the first time we see on screen that the Tuskens are a bit more mellow. Previously, the Tusken Raiders were just that, raiders, like the Norse legends of Vikings and such like that. Only the Tuskens didn't adopt the beliefs of those they raided. They had their own set culture and clans. They did not like newer technology, hence the Gafferty sticks and cycler rifles. But the first time we see them in The Mandalorian, they are interested in Toro Calican's binocs. This shows that the Sand People have changed. They are interested in technology, not to mention the fact they are negotiating with Din and Toro instead of beating them to death. We aren't given much clue as to how it changed when we see it in The Mandalorian. In the Aftermath novels, it says that Cobb Vanth did it, but in The Mandalorian, it is proposed that they have already been civilized to some degree. So, here is my theory, and please bear with me on it. Number 1. The events of The Mandalorian Chapter 9 take place before some of the events in the Aftermath series. Number 2. To keep his identity secret, the credit for the Tusken human truce goes to Cobb Vanth, and the explanation in Aftermath is after the events of the Krayt Dragon and Human Tusken Alliance. Number 3. Din Djarin was taught several forms of communication. It wasn't that the Tuskens were actually civilized when we first see them in The Mandalorian, but that we have never seen anyone try to communicate with them. Maybe they were just misunderstood from our point of view. Or maybe each clan was a bit different, some being more warrior-like, others agriculturally. Whatever the case, Din Djarin bridges that gap. So essentially, in my theory, the Tuskens didn't change from the events of A New Hope to the events of The Mandalorian Season 1, roughly 5 years after Return of the Jedi. The difference was that we actually saw someone who could communicate with them. Yes, they were a little more interested in technology, but it was probably the first of many baby steps. Just because we got the Aftermath novels before The Mandalorian doesn't mean that all of the events took place before The Mandalorian. A lot of fans like to claim it's a continuity issue. And while there are small continuity issues with Cobb Vanth, the Tusken involvement isn't necessarily one of them. Din Djarin could have aided or even guided Cobb Vanth with the Tusken relations, just as he did in Chapter 9. Yes, I know Din Djarin wasn't a character when Aftermath was written, but it can be easily explained that his name was omitted because Cobb Vanth was telling the story. And as we see, he has a noticeably big ego. In The Mandalorian Season 1, it is also apparent that Din Djarin is versed in many languages. Not only do we see him converse with the Tuskens, but also Jawas. Maybe his languages are limited to Tatooine cultures. That's another video though. We don't know that the Tuskens are actually civilized when we first see them, but only that he bridges a gap by being able to communicate with them. This helps in the future when the settlement of Mos Pelga, led by Cobb Vanth, is able to team up with the Raiders to defeat the Krayt Dragon. The truce between Freetown and Tusken Raiders begins. We will stop murdering your people so long as you stop murdering our people. Meaning, the Tuskens were still savages up to this point, and now they have been humanized. Alright, so to sum it all up, Cobb Vanth gets the credit for the Tusken truce due to either his ego in the storytelling or to keep the secrecy of Din Djarin. Or perhaps even both. The events and aftermath are not linear and can be sprinkled throughout The Mandalorian. I still wish I could have seen Mickey, whatever his name was, the Rancor trainer, and his little Hutlet. But maybe I'll still get a chance if we aren't done with Cobb Vanth yet. And it wasn't that the Tuskens were so much as civilized, but rather someone was able to communicate with them. Have you ever been frustrated when talking to someone with a language barrier? I'm sure you didn't beat them with a gafferty stick, but it can be quite annoying and frustrating. Well, that's my theory. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you give the video a thumbs down, comment as to why. I'd like to know how I can better service my viewers. Also, share the video. Let's see if we can get this one over 1,000 views. Thank you for watching, and remember, this is the way.